Can I first of all get a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting? Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number one, resolution request to amend the county budget to establish CD 75 fund.
Me first? Okay. Economic development first on the list. Messed me up there.
You were trying to, Wayne.
Yeah. All right. CD 75, we want to establish that fund. This was a grant award to do basically an assessment of the Countryside Adult Home, to look at the building envelope and the subsystems to determine what the needs are, what shape the building's in, and as a precursor to possibly submitting more applications to work on the building itself. So this was a path that was encouraged by the grantor agency. Since we're working on the sewer line to Countryside at this point, we wanted to follow up and just kind of finish that off if we could. So we were awarded $43,237 for that study, and we need to create the community development account at the county. I submitted a copy of the award letter and the terms.
I'll move it.
Okay, Supervisor Simpson moves it, seconded by Supervisor Stroh. Any discussion?
I just wanted to ask about, is that a match or is
No,
that
no.
it's straight?
Straight.
Supervisor
Great.
Leggett.
Subsystems, will that include their security, and all that?
Whatever's needed inside the building, whatever's deficient. Yeah, we'll look at the heating, everything in there.
You're talking fire alarm,
That's right.
the fire alarm system
Fire
they brought
alarm.
up.
Thanks, yep.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Number two, resolution to enter an agreement with the Village of Lake George. Thank you.
Okay, I met with Supervisor Bramer, through the whatever the committee is, the environmental facilities or whatever, a number of months ago. We were approached by the mayor, and they received 2 grant awards that were to be administered by the Watershed Coalition. And not delving into the issues going on with that, the village had executed the grant awards, and the state never did. I think it was right at the beginning of some of the issues that were coming to light. So we worked with the village, we worked with the grantor agency, and believe we have some programs that'll work so that we save the money, basically. And pages 17 through 19, pages 18 and 19 are the actual work program elements. And the next step in the process is to enter into a memorandum of understanding to administer these, and then the grantor agency would release the funds. So it's for the items that are listed there. One is, and I don't have the exact amounts. One is 500 some odd thousand, and one is close to 700,000 or 800,000 LWRP funds. We've worked with the village and with the participating entities, the Fund for Lake George, the Lake George Association, and the Park Commission. Thank you very much. My cold is just gone. And there's the match will be provided by those entities. So the county's not on the hook for any of the match, other than maybe some administrative salaries, which we can find a way to do for that.
And there are no, these grants are not related to any pending litigation
That's why we're willing to work with them.
Okay,
Correct.
wonderful. Good. Thank you.
And actually, the 2012 one is actually, everything is done. Actually, he did put the amount there, 780 and 1 million. Yeah, 1 million. Okay, so the 2012 is really done, it's just a matter of processing paperwork. The dilemma with some of these, and then I think why it's important, is the project partners, once the village signed the award, a lot of the project partners went ahead and started their process, believing that the contract was coming through, and so they're on the hook for some funding, and we just want to make sure that everybody gets what they should get.
Thank you, Mickey. Supervisor Leggett.
Okay, so for clarification then, on this 2012 award, 2013, looks like a lot of this work has been going.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So these project components have been underway, have been carried out.
Yeah,
We're just looking for funding for them at this point.
Well, to reimburse the entities that have expensed their funds based on their good faith effort that the contract was coming forward.
Okay.
So, yes.
Good, Supervisor.
Okay, so why are we getting involved at this point when it seems like to me they've already been doing some of the work? There was always there was already other entities working with the grants or getting the grants okayed. I'm just a little confused. It seems like to me we're coming in at the 11th hour and now doing the administrative work, and potentially we have a cost there, you said, of from the county standpoint. I'm just a little confused on why we're coming in at the 11th hour.
The grantor agency has not executed the agreement due to the capacity of the local government and the previous entity to administer the grant. We come in with a proven checks and balances. We have the audits. We have, it's a matter of just processing payments at this point in time. The village asked us, we looked at it and said, from an office standpoint and from talking with the environmental facilities committee, that we should go forward with this, so we have, and we're at that point now.
So you're saying Lake George, the municipality, doesn't have the means now to administer the grant from an administrative position, yet they've done that. They've done how many grants over the last 15 years? I'm just confused why all of a sudden we're having a shift, and it's kind of a little red flag to me that we're now having the municipalities that always used to administer these grants and do all this stuff, now saying, well, we can't do that, we don't have the people to do that now. I mean, does that seem a little odd to you, that we're having a change like that at the 11th hour?
The entity or the person that was doing the administration is no longer eligible to do the administration.
Would that be Mr. Decker?
That would be.
Okay.
So, they prepared, so none of this, the contract has not been, the two contracts have not been executed by the state. None of the grant funds have actually passed to the municipality. This is not something that the village has normally done. They normally let the Watershed Coalition and then Mr. Decker handle all that. So the mayor came to us and said, because we have a long history in doing the LWRPs, the local waterfront programs, over in the First Wilderness Corridor, and has done 12 or 13 of them, I can't remember now, and the state approached us and said, can we work something out? We met with them, met with the facilities, their environmental,
It
whatever
was
it's called.
Supervisor Brock and myself. Were you there as well, Supervisor McDevitt?
I believe I was, yes.
Yeah.
Supervisor Bramer, you had your hand up, and
Thank
then
you, yes.
Supervisor Stroud,
I-
and then Supervisor Simpson.
I have full confidence in our department being able to handle this properly, and a lot of the work is being done by these partner organizations, and some of the work has already been done. I do have a question though, Wayne. I thought there was built into this some money for us to administer the program.
Absolutely, but there is a match requirement, and if we can't offset the match, it's 25% match. So, and we would just use in-kind services for that.
Okay, out of your office.
Correct.
Yeah.
Without increasing our budget, right.
Okay.
Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, well, I think Wayne said that the towns never administered these grants. These grants were administered by Dave Decker as a contractor for the Department of State. Yes, the towns held the grants, but did not administer them. So if you want to go on with the good work that these grants do have to offer, and I think if you read through them, you'll find out there's many good works here they would want to prohibit. But just let's make clear, the towns never administered these grants.
Supervisor Simpson, and then back to Supervisor Bramer.
I just wanted to note that all of these projects are for the benefit of all of Warren County. These are important projects. This is the whole Lake George Basin, and if the county can administer these grants and make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, I'm all for it. There's precedence for it in other counties where they handle all the grants through their planning.
Supervisor Bramer, and then back to Supervisor Beatty.
I'd just like to move this. I'd like to make a motion to move number 2.
Oh,
I didn't think we had one on.
okay.
I thought we're in the discussion phase. We're still-
We certainly will continue the discussion. Let me get a motion on the floor by Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Continue the discussion, Supervisor Beatty.
But I had my hand up. Then he called on you.
You can continue to discuss.
Maybe there was already a motion on the table, wasn't there? No.
Pulling the calendar.
The floor is yours, Supervisor Beatty. We
Thank
have
you.
open and
I-
unencumbered discussion on
There
this
you go.
here.
That's what we always would like to have. Thank you. I know sometimes on the board level it doesn't happen. I don't think anybody disagrees that these are good grants and they're needed for Lake George from an environmental standpoint. I know I'm not, but I am concerned when it seems to me that grants already been administrated, already been executed for the most part, and we're coming in at the 11th hour. Now, if we need to do that to save it, fine. I just get concerned about our involvement when it's like saying, I drove you 90 yards down the field, now we're going to bring in another quarterback to finish the last 10 yards, and people go, well, why would you do that? So, we need the grants. I agree. Obviously, Mr. Decker's involvement in the fraud and all that has has made grants cloudier and got people very defensive, and probably should be. So I will vote in favor of this because I have a ton of confidence in Wayne and his department. And if I didn't have that 110% confidence, I'd probably be a little leery. But I do have that, and I do know he dots the i's and crosses the t's, and I don't think we have a liability in this situation because of the fact that the individual that was part of it was now not part of it.
Thank you. Before asking for a vote, I just would like to make one comment if I can. Mr. Decker has been charged with a crime. He has not been found guilty of anything. Okay, so the process goes on. That's the system we live with, and so that is my legalistic comment for the day. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Number 3.
Are you going somewhere?
Well, number 3 is request authorization for me to go to New Orleans, a place I really don't care to go, but anyway. The National Planning Conference is here this year, and as I have said to this committee for the past year and a half, I do have a sunset in my employment here with the county, and we have made an effort to find a successor to my position, and for various reasons, 3 people have turned it down. So, I don't know, must be I really didn't give a good image of what we do here, I don't know. But at the National Planning Conference, they have 3 days of basically a job fair as part of it. And so my main focus would be to see, is do recruiting. There's college seniors, and there's about 6,000 planning professionals that come to this. We'll put the information up there. They provide a place to do interviews, and see what happens. So, and as I said to the chairman, due to my advanced age, we get a break on the registration fee. Instead of $735, it's $175. So that's what they do for the geriatric set.
We get a motion by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. I agree with you, New Orleans is a terrible place. The food, the lack of alcohol, no music, it's just terrible.
Alcohol, so.
Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Okay. Number 4 is amend Capital Fund 347. This is a local waterfront program that was awarded to the county. We use this capital fund to administer it. When it was set up, the local match was not appropriated. The Treasurer's Office is asking us to clean that up. So on page 22, you have resolution request form to increase the capital fund by $82,000. Right, which was the amount of the actual award, and so therefore we're providing the match. There's one other thing that came up this morning in discussion with that. I believe Resolution 47 talks about 73 says to advance funding for the boat washing stations, and that was for, actually, that one will be reimbursed. It is 47, that there is funding in there for the staffing for the boat washing stations. That staffing is actually used as the match, and apparently, according to the Treasurer's Office, they don't feel that this resolution adequately reflects that is for the match. So I would, even though that's how the application was written, that's what the contract says, they think that there's a conflict with this resolution. So if there is indeed, I'd ask the county attorney's office to look at it, and if we need to amend it, I'd request an amendment to make sure that so notes it as used for the match.
And can we get a motion to get it on the table? Supervisor Leggett, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion? Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking us to... I would like to see the amendment, the proposed amendment, before we vote on this.
There is no amendment. To the resolution. Okay.
Yeah.
When you look at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph, it says to $100,000 for the purchase and $100,000 to the village for the inspection, for the labor. That $100,000 for the labor is the match, and the Treasurer's Office is just asking for a clarification that they don't think that the resolution reads that it's for the match, even though the grant application and the contract so states that. If we need to fix that, I would ask unless you want to look at it, Mary, and see what we need, does it? I mean, they're doing an interpretation of the resolution. I don't know. We came in after the fact on this, so this is one of the ones that we inherited, yes, for the lake. So, but this is an award to the county, so.
Mary, did you want to opine at this point or not?
Let's go back to 2015.
What's that? Sure, you.
Okay, so basically we just have to put a sentence in there that says it's for the match of the grant?
The $100,000 that went to the village.
Yep.
Yes.
The administration of the boat launch?
Right, that was to be used as match.
Okay, we can make that amendment.
Okay.
I mean, if the board approves it.
Right.
Supervisor Bramer, how are you feeling about
Okay,
this?
so they basically spent $100,000 on salaries.
Right.
The village spent it, and we were reimbursing them for that. Well, they spent $100,000 as the match.
The county forwarded, because the grant award is to the county for this one. This is contract 461. And from what I understand, talking to the Treasurer's Office, they looked at the contract document, and they don't feel that they're comfortable saying that even though when the funding for the boat washing, the labor part was never intended to be reimbursed. So we're just using that as the match. It's an expenditure that's out there that can be used as match.
It's not money going anywhere, sorry.
No, but it's freeing up the other $112,000 that the county has coming back to it for the actual purchase of the boat washing station. So that's the match for that.
Hey, that's a real quick question. Who's questioning it? The
Rob.
Huh?
Rob in the treasurer's office.
Is the state questioning it?
Nope.
Did you talk to the state about it?
Yep.
Wow.
The state doesn't see this resolution. So.
Right, but I mean,
Right.
the state has always been fine with us.
Yeah.
We're doing this because our treasurer, our deputy treasurer.
Yes.
Supervisor Leggett.
So for the motion here for $482,050, that's for both projects total. We're establishing a capital project.
The capital project exists. Right now, it has $482,000 in it. All right? That is just the grant amount. The match is another $482,050. Those, 50/50 funding. And the way the grant application was written, they were using the labor for the boat washing stations as the match. But the county's books never reflected the match. And coming right around 2014 or so, we have had to go back and amend all the capital programs that had a match to include them at the request of the treasurer's office, so that they have the full scope of the project rather than just the grant amount per se.
So the $482,000 includes that match.
It is the match.
It is the match.
Correct.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. Do we have full documentation about the match from the village in that it substantiated the $100,000?
Yes, we have $538,000 worth.
And that includes the $100,000 from the village in match money? Okay.
Actually, the
Not
money
match
from the
money.
village
Match
is actually
work.
the county money. That's how the county put the money into the fund to pay their share of the boat washing labor. The fund for the Lake George puts them in, the LGA puts them in, and it all went through the village and then went over to the Park Commission, and the contract was with the Park Commission and Heber at that point for the labor.
What would it take to get Mr. Lynch to stamp this and say, it meets my standards?
I think Mary had some suggested language that
Yes.
She's got a sentence.
it's
Just
just...
amending it would be easy enough.
Okay. And what was Rob's concern? I guess you mentioned he had an objection, or did you mention that?
He felt that the second $100,000 in here was never identified that it was a match. It was in the application, it is in the contract. We showed him the contract, and he says he thinks, in his legal opinion, I didn't say that, it does not coincide with the contract that the county assigned. So,
Do you want me to read what it could say? in
Sure,
the amendment?
please do.
Okay. I just had it say $100,000 to be paid to the Village of Lake George for administration of the boat launch inspection and boat wash program through an intermunicipal agreement between Warren County and the Village of Lake George to be used as a match to the grant funding.
all it needs to say.
Supervisor Stroud.
I'm confused because on page 2 of 2, in the first whereas, the last sentence says, together with pledge contributions from other members of the Lake George Watershed Coalition as set forth in the consolidated funding application will satisfy all local match requirements.
Right. That refers to that $150,000 in that paragraph.
And only that,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't take it that way.
Well, neither do I, but
I think it refers to all the above, is the way I'm taking it. But, okay.
I'm just trying to get the money back to the county.
Well, I mean, I think it says if
I think our attorney feels comfortable with kind of the issue as it stands. Okay, Supervisor Brammer.
Just real quick, when you say that, Wayne, I mean, you said the state has no concern, so why couldn't we get the money back? Rob certainly isn't
We can't process it through the county. We can get the money back. We
Okay.
can't process it through the county.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion and a second? Have we gone through that process? Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Okay, I'm a little over because of the discussion, but, attached to the rest of the agenda packet, and we have some new members here, so what I wanted to do, starting on page 29, this talks about the current programs that the office is administering. As you can see, we're working at about $9 million worth of projects with $4.7 million worth of grant funding. They're articulated in the paperwork, through page 41. So I'm not going to go through those point by point. What I do need to do is on page 42, General Municipal Law, Section 239B, paragraph 6 requires an annual report to the board on planning referrals. This constitutes that report. We reviewed staff functions as the referral agency under Section 239 of General Municipal Law, and we reviewed 309 projects from local municipalities. You see what they are here, the distribution. I think Town of Queensbury kind of drives our agenda, and so that's all that I have for that. Then there is pages 43 and 44. They were provided as the efforts under the GIS program in 2017. So beyond that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. Are you, go ahead, Supervisor Leggett.
How is the GIS coming out? I notice every day something seems to be happening on that.
We, there's been some software glitches, server glitches. They'll seem to be working through. It's always great when the software provider does an update, and then we have to go and rewrite all the different macros and subroutines that go with it because they're no longer compatible. The plotter in Real Property Office broke, so they have ours, and there's going to be a new one on order for our office, so it'll be the same piece of equipment, but so we're without a plotter at this point in time, so we have to send plots over to Real Property and hoof it across and pick them up. So, but we are providing, we have started providing technical assistance through a grant agreement, memorandum of understanding, not a grant agreement, with AGFTC for providing some of their GIS services. So there's revenue into the GIS program from there. So the big thing coming up is the 2020 census, as we have to start validating the map and address points for the Census Bureau. It's kind of interesting in that the state of New York does provide it, but the Census Bureau doesn't work with their files, so we have to do the same thing the state of New York does through their Real Property Office, and do field testing and just validate the addresses. And when we did this for the 2010 census, we probably had maybe 4,000 that address points that were in error, and it's basically what happens. A lot of them is they start the address point, the actual street address is in the wrong place, So once you correct that, it takes care of the whole road, because, you don't have house number 100, and then next to it, house number 300, and then house number 102. And some of their files come through that way, so, most cases, So we'll be doing a lot of cleanup of their electronic files in preparation for the 2020 census, and that's the LUCA program that you had sent me an email. So,
Thank you, Wayne. I think I go down periodically to the real estate area and pull aerials, and it always amazes me, the ability to crystally pinpoint areas in this county, and it just is just amazing. The detail and the information gleaned from the aerial arena is very impressive. So.
They were supposed to replace the aerial imagery last year, and I believe two things happened. One, they waited too late, and the leaf cover came on and inhibited the accuracy or the detail in the imagery. And I believe they also had one of the cameras out of focus. So they're reflying it this year for us.
Okay.
So we will have hopefully new imagery up by the fall.
Great. Thank you very much, Wayne. Appreciate it. Are you next, Ed? Are you?
Yes, I am.
Great. Hope you're feeling better, Wayne.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Happy New Year, and we provide a little snapshot of what we have undertaken in December and through the early part of January in a couple of different areas. One of the items that has major effect on our county and other counties is the state, and the ensuing budget overview by the governor back in January. The state was down there to receive the information, and then briefly afterwards with the members of the Department of Budget for some of the impacts statewide, but also more importantly from Warren County's perspective. And then that was followed up with our event later in the month with the DMV Commissioner Terry Egan, who formerly, she is an attorney, and she was the first Democrat supervisor elected ever to the town of Bethlehem, first Democrat ever in the town of Bethlehem for over 200 years. And she gave an update from the governor's perspective, and she was a substitute for Commissioner Reardon, who was not able to attend because of the flu from the Department of Labor. And Commissioner Egan did an excellent job in presenting an update, and did a lot of homework over Friday and early Monday morning before that. She did a real good job in that response. These are some of the economic development issues and other items that pertain to our area. One of the items is that the governor is looking to reauthorize but expand the Minority Women Business Enterprise Program to all state-funded contracts to localities, to counties as well. That will be going through a series of public hearings and so forth, but that right now is currently limited to certain contracts, certain grants from the state to the county, to the city and the towns, that are looking to expand to all those other contracts. So that will require a significant education process to undertake this localization. Probably around 30 to 35% of each contract will be required to undertake due diligence for that. Another major area that will be undergoing some transformation is in the workforce development area. The governor is looking to create a new Office of Workforce Development and essentially merge, consolidate, or alter the current setup with the local workforce investment boards along. Currently, right now, the Department of Labor in New York State receives all of the funds for workforce development essentially from the federal government. New York State keeps essentially about 80% of those statewide funds for workforce development at the state level, and then they submit out to the 10 boards, which John sits on the board, for about 20%. So the regional boards get very little funds when it comes to workforce development, and efforts have been underway for the last few years for the communities in the county to be able to access these funds more than just through the CFA process. We know economic development doesn't occur once a year when you do the application. It has been rather difficult, and I think the governor's office recognizes that when we have, we've had a couple of incidences locally in the North Country where a couple of small companies were looking for some workforce development to assist in new equipment with computers, upgrade, as well as some computer classes to train, and that money was not available other than through the CFA process. And so those are the kind of things that I think that this program is going to try to adjust. The governor's also proposing the continuation of round 8 of the CFA process, also looking to expand the youth program, and also broadband, which is going to be on the 3rd round. Another area which hopefully we can get some traction both from the state and the federal government, and that is on the infrastructure. As we all know, each community, whether it is your storm, water, drainage issues, bridge repairs, roads, there's just not sufficient funds available. And so I was optimistic earlier in the year when Senator Schumer and the President had some initial discussions on this infrastructure, but obviously that's been put aside with the current issues on tax reform and the budget area there. Also, there's going to be an increase in funding. This is his proposal, the governor, in the agriculture, Taste New York, and new marketing area, which has a direct positive impact on Warren County with the number of farmers markets, with the continued increase of the Taste New York program and the number of micro breweries in our area, including hopefully a new brewery up at O.P. Fredericks with Bruce and George with a CFA fund that they got through the support of Craig Liggett, the supervisor from the town of Chester, that was very helpful in pushing that along. Continued effort by the governor for year-round tourism with additional attractions of games at Lake Placid, including Bel Air and Gore, and the World University Games is coming back to Lake Placid in a few years. Jeff Byrne from Florida has indicated that they are planning to have some of those events at Gore in 2023. Another potential change is a proposal by the governor to require all local government officials in a policy-making role that earn more than $50,000 a year to be subject to a financial disclosure statement. Currently, that is in place at the state. This is not. This is for policy makers, so not everybody that makes over 50 would qualify for the requirement of disclosure requirement. So that means the money is not private from the private sector, but the fact is you have to earn $50,000 from your local municipality, whether it's a town, village, or county, to be subject. And again, these are all proposals. So some of the things that we are looking at for next year is to continue to focus in on the areas of infrastructure. One of the projects that is just getting underway now is the Pathway Corridor from 149 and Route 9 down essentially to Walmart Gamble's for the study traffic impact along that way. And we expect that study to be completed. A lot of public engagement and discussions with the property owners in that area by the outlets. By October, that we'll have a report that will go back to the town, the county, and National Grid has been helpful in providing a $50,000 grant for that study. We want to continue to work with the various entities undertaking tourism, and I might add that the new tourism book is out for this coming year, and I like the style and the summary of some key countywide events that they've put together instead of just having a lot of charts as they've done in the past. I think it's a pretty sharp-looking book that has been put together by the county tourism. We also want to continue to focus on one of the outstanding issues with the medical device industry that affects AngioDynamics and a couple of other smaller medical device firms, is the issue that the suspension of the tax on medical device manufacturing is basically sunsetted at this point. So Congress right now, it's hard to look at an individual project such as this one. We can't get an agreement on the major issue, but that is vitally important for AngioDynamics and two small other medical device firms in our area to put that together. Also, we will continue to be having an update on our issue in area with economic development growth coming up in late February, a forum. We'll also have a effort and a luncheon in May that we've got some dates for to again talk on our economic development countywide. Also, we're looking to undertake our annual fall zoning conference up in George, and also the Business Review is undertaking a tourism summit in March that various entities, including EDC, will be participating along with the county, I believe, and the Lake George Area Chamber of Commerce as well. I think that's very good to get noticed, and particularly get notice from not necessarily just within our region, but outside our area to work as well. Just moving on here with our time here. Again, we will continue to work early. I think that we have been successful, number one, in being able to meet early with a number of private sector as well as the municipalities and talking about the status of the CFAs and consolidated funding applications in our area. Because you can't wait for the last minute, the applications will be due in July, to go to a town or to a private sector and say that, you know, this is a 20% or 25% grant. You have to come up with the other 75 or 80%. You can't do that overnight, particularly whether it's a privately owned or publicly traded business. You've got to be able to give them advance notice, let them be aware of the program, and to meet with state officials as well as with municipalities. Again, going to Johnsburg and saying that here's a 20% grant, and you've got your budget already done, essentially, for the year. It's very difficult. And again, the other issue with this, it's all reimbursement. This is not, it's a grant, but it's at the end of the project, so that the towns, the village, the city, the county has to put in a full 100% of the grant, and then you do your reimbursement for that 20 or 25 or 30%. Now, some programs this year, the local waterfront programs that the county got, the city got, this year was the first year that it was a 75 to 25% increase from 50 to 75. So that was basically a good approach for the county. And Wayne had provided you some information, and we're going to pass this all out here, but a total of over $6 million was awarded to Warren County through the CFA process, and approximately about $5 million involved identifiable projects that the EDC was involved in assisting with letters of support or directly involved in assisting with their applications. And it's a good mixture of municipal funding as well as funding for the private sector. West Mountain, for years, Crazy Mike Brandt complained about the lack of state funding for ski centers. West Mountain finally broke that through the new ownership led by Spencer and his wife Sarah and Bruce Boswell and others, in order to pick up substantial funding in the amount of $400,000 for the expansions at West Mountain, not only for winter activities, but most importantly for some summertime activities to expand that area. So there is a return date at last for the RFQ on the airport of February 15th at 3 o'clock. Also, as I mentioned before, the Pathway Corridor Study is underway, also future activities, some of the things that Craig has done a terrific job in doing phase one of the economic development and planning. and certainly we will be available to assist with Craig as he moves forward with that important study in the particular areas as well. Another area where Microsoft has stepped up, I think I gave that report a couple of months ago, they are evaluating and understanding the very limitations of white space, and they are pledging to undertake studies and undertake a real effort to increase the speed and the capacity of white space in the area. That is a very limiting factor in the town of Thurman, where the white space is a limiting factor. And Microsoft has indicated they are evaluating three to four towns in the northern part of Warren County to determine that viability. And most importantly, it's not going to be contingent on federal, state, or local funds for Microsoft to get involved. Frontier, out of all the telecommunication vendors, suppliers in the area, Frontier has stepped to the forefront in a small way, but a significant way, in the town of Johnsburg and in the town of Stony Creek to provide through round 1 and round 2 of the broadband areas. In Johnsburg, you're kind of centering in the downtown Hamlet area of North Creek, and in Stony Creek, again, it's going to be, can't quite say the urban area, Frank, but in your downtown area of Stony Creek is where they're going to be focusing on in that particular area. But through a combination of some broadband monies and also if this Microsoft can come about, they're not going to proceed Microsoft if they cannot increase the speed as well as the capacity, because that just is very frustrating. Our metals group that came in for the loan indicated they're at the tail end of the in the town of Thurman on that white space, and it is not conducive for them to carry on any business, to take orders. It's impossible for them to take orders and respond with that white space. Again, white space has always been viewed as the last resort, but it's important, and Microsoft sees this, in those areas that positively, absolutely, Microsoft can potentially be helpful to eliminate that issue. Yes.
Are there regulatory blocking, anything that we can do from Warren County's perspective for approvals? I mean, we're not giving out money, but is there anything we can do
For white space?
No, for
No,
actual
it's
broadband.
the only issues probably would be, and not issues, but the checkoffs would be depending on the locations of perhaps some right-of-ways through the county, but that would be subject to the particular supplier, whether it's Verizon or so forth, to come to the county and ask for a permit if it's going to go
to get
underground.
on our
And
on our
also,
right-of-way. And obviously, we would want to
Right.
facilitate that as fast as
I
possible.
don't think that is an issue. The other issue that we would have would be the erection of any towers and so forth within, the APA. Now,
For white space.
For white space or for broadband in certain areas to connect. You see what they can do in certain areas. There's some monies out of the Federal Communication Commission and E-rate where you could take a cell tower and then be able to run above line or below ground. Below ground would be more expensive, some Wi-Fi coverage into communities.
Okay.
So there's a number of ways. It really comes down to funding between the federal government. There are programs through the USDA, the Federal Communication Commission, E-rate, as well as with New York State Broadband. And so Microsoft adds another interesting element in those areas, because right now you're talking $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a mile to run basically underground. Above ground, you have to then have where there will be a jurisdictional issue would be depending on whose pole it is. If Frontier wants to run a pole on, friendly competitor Verizon, those are the kind of issues that would have to be resolved for that. But again, I think that we need really in 2018 to come up with a plan that is comprising some Microsoft issues for white space, and then to work with the vendors such as Frontier and others. Governor's money is really to go to pay for Verizon, Time Warner to come into the area. But also what has not been happening in other parts of the state is that everybody assumes, and they give money to Verizon, yet Verizon, it may not be the case with Verizon, but the provider has not done a survey in that community in which they say we're going to get capital money for. So when they go out after they have the service and look for subscribers, and they say, well, you've got to pay $90 a month to subscribe, nobody's been signing up. So that's an important part, is that once we've identified these areas, we really need to undertake, in partnership with this provider, a survey to see if, Matt Simpson is going to agree to sign up for $50 or $75. What is his break-off to do that? Because these providers are still not going to go in if they're going to lose money on the operating side as well. So that's the other portion of it that we have to address, and particularly we're talking the northern sphere of Warren County, from Chester and Horicon and Johnsburg and Thurman and Stony Creek over into Lake Luzerne in those particular areas. It's a big task to undertake, but we've got to try to pool together all of the sources of money. Senator Gillibrand and Congressperson Elise Stefanik, had a news conference a year and a half ago stating that they're asking for more money from USDA, and we are following up with both congressional and the Senate offices to see where the status of that legislation is, because we definitely need more money in this area. SUNY Culinary is underway in construction-wise at 14 Hudson Avenue in the city of Glens Falls. They expect to be completed in sometime in the March-April time period. Also, the snow train has been derailed by the floods, and they hope to get back in operation. I'm not sure if that's going to be possible this year. And they're also looking to do a summer train run, taking an identifiable namesake and running a train later in the year. That's all subject to rail, abilities. That was the loan that we had provided last month in December for the New Way Lunch at their third location in Lawrenceburg, and also to our friends in the town of Thurman. And there is one of the goats that provides the cheese right there.
Supervisor Bramer, did you have a comment? Did you have? Okay.
I wanted to get back to the railroad thing. I think it would be important for EDC to be cognizant of any efforts through the Board of Supervisors to start looking at ways to make that the First Wilderness Corridor part of a multi-use trail, and as the train operations are scaling back. I mean, I know that the flood has caused a problem, but they were only operating one snow train a week. So I think that, just to keep that on your horizon.
It has not been a very viable operation.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion?
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
make one more
Go
comment
ahead.
based on last week's finance meeting.
Okay.
I had asked, when we were renewing the contract with EDC, if there was any ways to make some of the goals that you have in your Schedule A into the contract, some, measurable or more. I think it's great as far as contractors. You are always here, always giving us an update. We decided to stay away from, actual measurable goals, but I think it would be nice to see like workforce retention rates or numbers of businesses that we've added or expanded, and that one slide that you showed with the dollar amounts that are getting handed out, that's something that I would like to see maybe on a quarterly basis. We can see them.
Published in the Post-Star a couple of weeks ago as well,
I'll have to pay attention
Also,
to
I
the
might
Post-Star
add that the chairman of your committee will be at our graduation ceremony tomorrow at Local 773. We have 12 graduates.
Great.
2 to 3 of those already have jobs, and the majority of those jobs were coming from Warren County, and the graduates of that program, essentially, the 12 or 13, 2 were one from Saratoga, one from Washington. The rest were from the county. 2 were from the city of Glens Falls. It's a well-diversified group. And so that program, 17 communities in the country received that grant, and the city of Glens Falls, through leadership of former Mayor Jack Timon, was able to receive that grant. This is our second grant. It's a fully 100% paid for by the federal government. And that's one of the few grants that there's no magic chair, and it's all upfront grant money, not a reimbursement area. So that we have a great partnership with 773 and vendors that help out. And, Mr. McDevitt will be giving the graduation speech
That's right.
tomorrow. So onward and
Sounds great. Supervisor Simpson.
I just wanted to let the committee be aware that I sit on the IDA board in Washington County IDA, and there's going to be a vacancy in February on the Warren County. It has to be a Warren County resident. And so we're going to, I've talked to the administrator already, and the chairman of the board, and we're going to probably put an advertisement out maybe in the local business, try to attract good applicants and
Thank
go
you.
through. So.
Thank you very much. Can we get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Hogan, second by Supervisor Simpson. All those in favor?
Right.